In today's gospel, we have the raising of Lazarus, and it takes place in Bethany. And Bethany, it says, is very close to Jerusalem, just a couple of miles, and that's indeed the case. You can go to the Church of St. Lazarus. It's no longer Bethany, but it has an Arabic name. It's in the West Bank. But again, beautiful church there in Bethany. The other thing is that burials, because they didn't have the chemicals that they have today to preserve the body, burials took place within 24 hours, usually within 8 hours, especially in the late spring, summer, and early fall months when it's very hot in Israel. So burials many times took place within the first 8 hours. The other thing is that we think about the raising of the dead. We think about the synagogue leader with the daughter who he says, come, and my daughter is very sick. They said, as they were coming, they said, no, your daughter has died. But Jesus throws them out of the room, all the wailers and the people who are there, and takes the parents and raises the child. We also think about the raising of the son of the widow of Nain. Again, stops the funeral procession and tells the son to arise, and he does. But again, those are within close to the time of death that the burial took place. For the Lazarus, it was not the case. So what happens is that he sends word. Mary and Martha send word that Lazarus is very sick. Jesus then stays. He doesn't go to see Lazarus. He then decides to go. St. Thomas, in showing great faith, says, well, let's go and die with him, because certainly there have been the point up until this time in Jerusalem, not within the Galilee, but within Jerusalem, the idea of Jesus and the Father having that relationship is just too much for them. They consider it blasphemy, and they want to stone him or imprison him. So St. Thomas says, let's go and die with him. So again, showing great faith. We see Martha comes out to meet the Lord and says, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Jesus then says, your brother will rise. I know he'll rise in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? And she says, yes, Lord, I've come to believe that you are the Christ, the one who is coming into the world. And so the great statement of faith of Martha, we see that in the gospel. The one thing we don't have in the Gospel of John is the statement of faith by Peter that, yes, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. But instead, the statement of faith is done by Martha, and really showing that great statement of faith, believing that Jesus is indeed who he says he is, that all life comes through him. And so she believes, showing great faith. Then we see Mary. Mary does not vocalize as much in having a great statement of faith, but again, showing and demonstrating that faith by coming to the feet of Jesus and coming there to his feet and showing her faith. What we see is that they go to the tomb, and just like Peter, who has that great statement of faith, he says when Jesus tells him about his passion, his death, and resurrection, well, Lord forbid that should happen to you. Same way with Martha. Martha, when they go to the tomb, it says, Lord, wait a minute, it's going to stink. He's been there for a few days, it's going to smell, and certainly it would. But again, having that great statement of faith, but not realizing the true extent of God's power, not really the true extent of God's wishes. Same way with in St. Peter. So Jesus opens the tomb. He then calls Lazarus out, and Lazarus comes out. So the big thing about it is that it's not that Lazarus comes to life again, because certainly Lazarus will die. There's not a 2,000-year-old Lazarus. You don't go to the Church of St. Lazarus and there he is, ready to welcome you to his church. There is no 2,000-year-old Lazarus in the West Bank. but instead Lazarus indeed died. But what it does show is that Jesus has power over sin and death. And that's truly important thing, is not that Lazarus comes to earthly life again, although I'm sure for Mary and Martha and for many of the people that was an important thing. But again, Lazarus will die. The big thing is that Jesus has power over sin and death. And so when he says that in his resurrection that he will bring his sons and daughters with him, we can believe him by the resurrection of Lazarus. Thanks. God bless.